credit card when she was in college.
Good? All right. All right. You all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Lady called me.
I think our camera's fixed, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here tonight. Would like to ask you to stand, please, and Councilman Green will have our invocation and lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings that you give us every day. We humbly ask that you will grant a part of your infinite wisdom to this council, so that the actions we take and the motions we make will be in the best interest of the citizens of Poquoson. Please be with our first responders and their family, and with the armed forces and their families. We ask these things.
Amen. First item on our agenda tonight is a proclamation, a special presentation. And if I could ask the very kind ladies if they would join me from the Daughters of the American Revolution, if they would join me at the podium. Come on back. There's a plant in your way. That's all right. Hey, you got to get over here where they can see you. I'm going to get off camera. You can be on camera. Anyway, welcome. We're glad y'all are here. Whereas it is the privilege and the duty of the American people to commemorate the 234th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America with appropriate ceremonies and activities. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuance of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September the 17th through the 23rd of each year as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Gordon C. Helsel, Jr., Mayor of the City of Poquoson, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd of 2021 as Constitution Week, and urge all citizens to study the Constitution and to express gratitude for the privilege of American citizenship in our republic, functioning under the superb body of laws, the Constitution of the United States of America. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Poquoson, Virginia, to be affixed to this 13th day of September, 2021. And let me just say, ladies, this is really a privilege to know that we have people that are actually working and trying to cause people to understand and try to get people to take the time to read our Constitution and what it's all about. And the work that you folks do is very impressive.
Thank you
So,
very much.
if you want to come over here, I'm just going to present this to you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And if you'd like to say a few words, you're welcome.
Oh, sure. I'm going to take my mask off so you can understand. Constitution Week is the commemoration of America's most valuable document. It is celebrated annually, which we just mentioned. It stands as a testament to the tenacity of Americans throughout history who maintain the liberties, freedoms, and inalienable rights. The celebration of Constitution was started by the Daughters of the American Revolution. In 1955, the DAR petitioned Congress to set aside these days to annually be dedicated to the observance of Constitution Week. The resolution was adopted by Congress and was signed into law on August 2nd, 1956 by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. The aims of Constitution Week is to emphasize citizens' responsibilities for protecting and defending our Constitution, inform people about the Constitution and the basis of America's great heritage and foundation for our way of life, which has not successfully been replicated by other countries who have followed our model. So we we do look to the Constitution strongly. We encourage the study of historic events which led to the framing of the Constitution in September of 1789. So thank you very much for the proclamation. We do a lot of activities within the schools, the library, to get the word out. So please do spend some time and get to know our Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you. Appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so
Take care.
much.
Yes, ma'am. We'll come to the tree. Take care. Move on to our audience for visitors, and I'm aware of at least two speakers. First is David Gillison. Did I ruin that, or that was good, huh? Okay. All right, David. If you just give your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is David Jellison. I live at 23 Terrace Drive. I'm here to speak with you about the manner in which the school board is selected. Last school board meeting, it was pretty contentious. We had a group of parents here talking about the mask mandate issued by the governor. We strongly opposed it. There was no one in favor of it that showed up. However, the school board decided to vote in favor of the mask mandate with no provisions to and no exceptions that the mandate has, that the mandate calls for children that may need exceptions and exemptions. So they did postpone it. They came up to another date, and they had a different meeting where they voted on it, where we weren't allowed to speak. So they voted in favor of it, and they gave us no exceptions. They gave us no exemptions. My son has a speech impediment. I prefer him not to wear a mask because it keeps him from overcoming that. You know, not seeing other kids' faces, not seeing his teacher's face, and not being able to show the teacher what he's doing with his articulation. It keeps him from being able to speak well. There was another lady whose daughter had extreme eczema. There's no provision for them. That's unconscionable to me. Now, the school board voted, and had they given us some exception, I probably wouldn't be here right now, right? They get, some compromise, but there was none. All right. So, first of all, I would like to recommend the recalling of everybody who voted in favor of this mask mandate. The reason being is, they obviously do not care about their constituents, right? They didn't even take in consideration. They didn't try to negotiate with something. They just said no. When we showed our displeasure with the way they voted, one of the members said, we said, we're going to get you out of here. He said, good luck, we're appointed. Y'all appoint the school board is what I'm understanding how this works, right? I would propose, my second proposal would be to propose an amendment to where they are actually elected by the residents of Poquoson, therefore making them more subject to or more accountable by the members. Right now, we would have to ask for y'all to remove them because that's the only way to remove. So that's what I'm doing right now. But in the future, I feel that them being elected holds them more accountable because then it is a simple petition to bring up the 10% of the votes that they collected by Virginia law. I'm not sure how to start how the amendment works for the city. I've been looking into it. I just couldn't find it yet. So I'm looking into that and trying to find any advice or way to go on that. But I just wanted to to convey my displeasure with the school board as it is.
Okay, Mr. Jellison, thank you. We normally don't do questions and answers,
Okay.
but your child was specifically talked about, with the condition that your child has. And then I think the young lady who has breaks out, she has a mask on, her face breaks out. And my understanding was that those kids were taken care of. Is that not right or not?
We asked for an exemption, and there's no way to get an exemption as far as we could tell.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I can talk to you after this meeting if you stick around, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Dean, is it Dave?
Hello.
Is it Dave Dean?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Members of the council, I appreciate letting me speak. My name's Dave Dean. I live at 113 Freemore. And I was at the meeting at the last school board, not real happy with the results.
Excuse me, sir. I didn't catch your last name.
Dean,
Dean.
D-E-A-N.
Thank
Yes, sir. Sorry about that. But, and I'm here speaking more on, this room was pretty full of upset parents, and I'm speaking on their behalf. But there's parents who have kids who have asthma, who are not allowed to wear a mask, and the superintendent did not offer a plan for exemptions. They just ignored it. They act like they listened to us the first night. The next night, they just ramrodded it down very quickly. There's one voting to table, everyone else voted. You had to follow the mask mandate without exemptions. And that needs to be looked at, and I appreciate it, Mr. Mayor, that you're talking to Mr. Jellison, because we shouldn't leave any children behind. I mean, these are serious health things, and it's that if something happens to one of those child, based on, y'all are responsible. The city of Poquoson is responsible. So I just caution you. So, but I speak on behalf of them. The other reason I wanted to come is during that heated thing, I spoke before the school board, and I got very upset. And if you're not upset right now with what's happening in our country, you might be part of the problem. But I was very, very upset, and I spoke. I said negative things against our school board. I called them cowards and traitors. They're weak. Even called the governor, not the mayor.
Thank
called
you.
The governor,
Thank you.
called the governor a murderer. And right here on camera, right in this room. I wanted to come before the council and Mr. Mayor and just apologize. That was not the right response. Through much prayer, that's not the way to handle it. And criticizing and accusing is not going to change anything. But I'd like to, if you'll let me, I'd like to pray over you and bless you. Y'all are here in this position because you love Poquoson. And for that, we love you. And we thank each of you for being here and serving in this way. So if you let me, I'd just like to pray over you.
Absolutely. Go ahead, sir.
Father God, I just thank you for our mayor. I thank you for our city council. I thank you for our school board. Father God, I lift up our teachers, our principals, superintendents. I pray for the janitors, the bus drivers, and all of our students from the youngest to the oldest, Lord. I pray over our community. Those who dwell in your shelter, Lord, will rest in your shadow of the Almighty, Lord. It is you that protect us, Father. It's you that has protected our city for years and years. And Father, I'm so concerned that we're going to move away out of your protection. I just want to give you thanks, Lord. Forgive us for blaming you when things go wrong. And forgive us, Lord, for not giving you credit when things go right. I thank you, Lord. I just ask that you'll fill this room with wisdom, Lord. Fill these men with courage and wisdom. And I just thank you for our city. I thank you for your blessings. And we just draw near to you, Lord, and seek your presence and your wisdom day by day. God bless you. God bless our country. God bless this city. And God bless America. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dean. Appreciate it.
And can you stay around after the meeting also, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Are there others in the room that would like to address council on any issue at all? Anybody? Okay, let's move on then. We have 6 public hearings. The first public hearing is a conditional use permit request for Tabernacle United Methodist Church. And I think Mr. Canolo.
You may want to do the minutes first, the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I went right on by that one. We did have approval of the minutes. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Just need a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of our session of August the 9th, 2021, with a correction that I caught.
Okay?
Right, on item number 4, the Virginia Code 242-307 should be 242-222 on the city representation from the districts, or excuse me, precincts for the election after November 2021.
Okay. All right. We still have that motion? We still have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Peter. All right, Ms. Kim?
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman, Councilman Hux,
Aye.
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Councilman Fye,
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. Appreciate it. Now let's go to the public hearing, the conditional use permit request for Tabernacle United Methodist Church. Thomas, are you going to do that presentation? We're mighty short, by the way.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Manager. The first public hearing for your consideration tonight is a conditional use permit request of Tabernacle United Methodist Church. If you remember back in the spring, Imagination Land Daycare burnt down May 22nd. It was considered a total loss, and they lost their building. Since then, they've relocated to Tabernacle United Methodist Church, who has applied for a conditional use permit to continue the use of that daycare at their address. So for your consideration is that permit, and it comes with 4 conditions, Mr. Mayor. The first condition of the permit is that the daycare must comply with all local, state, and federal permits, licenses, regulations, etc. The second is that the daycare is permitted to operate indefinitely at Tabernacle United Methodist Church, and the reason for that being, if they decide to rebuild, they could potentially continue operation there, but if they continue to stay at Tabernacle, this permit would allow them to do that. The third condition is that if any time the permitted use on the property is discontinued for a period of 2 years, the permit is null and void. And the fourth condition is that City Council reserves the right to review and amend the conditions of this permit as you all see fit. That's all I have for that one, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
I do have questions, Thomas. It says here it's indefinite, so there's no time limit set on this at all, okay?
That's correct.
And, I don't know what their plans are. Are they going to build or find another facility within a certain length of time or not? Indefinite means possibly forever.
Correct. Yes, sir.
I don't know if the chairman of the facility is comfortable with it completely indefinite. I'd like to know what the plans are for the facility.
Yes, sir. Councilman Southall, I'd tell you, I believe that other parties will be able to address that, but the only indication staff has been given from folks from Tabernacle is that they're happy to have them there, and this was a condition that they were okay with and accepting of, and we haven't heard anything otherwise, but I'm sure the applicant can speak to that.
Well, can we hear from the applicant? Because it's my understanding the church hasn't heard plans from the applicant, and I want to make certain that happens.
Yes, sir. I'm assuming after the conclusion of my answers, the applicant would speak.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Keith.
Yes, I had several, as a matter of fact. One, that was the first one. It seemed like it should be like 2 years, and then we could readdress it in 2 years, but if they're going to find out the answer, that's great. Third first one was on the parcel. The parcel, as I see it, is kind of limited from the map I got offline to basically just a building in the parking lot. Would it mean that the children are never going to go outside? And I say that because I'm a playground kind of guy, and there's no playground at the church, and obviously no plan for one. That means the children will be inside the whole time, which they need some outside time, and I would think that they would ask for the surrounding parcels as well. I mean, they specifically mentioned one parcel, which is just the building and the parking lot. I'd like to think that maybe they didn't realize that they own more parcels than that to open it up, because someone wants to say, hey, you weren't approved to have the children over here, or something like that. That would be something that they would think about. And again, being a playground kind of guy, they did have a playground type facility at their one that burned down. They don't have anything now. I was kind of pushing with that again. The outside activities for children is pretty much invaluable. And you'd already brought up the one about the church prepared to comply with the standards for licensed daycare. And I looked it up, and back on the 10th of June, they had an inspection of Imagination Land at its current location with the church, and had 3 violations. They weren't major violations, but they're ones that want to make sure the church understands. I mean, it was like cleansers and stuff like that under sinks in the kitchen and in bathrooms that needs to make sure that those cabinets are locked or that stuff is removed. So they need to know that they're getting into a more detailed thing from the Department of Social Services when it comes down to inspections like that. So those are my concerns, and I hope that the church understands those.
Yes, sir, Councilman Fye, I'd tell you that, again, the applicant, I'm sure, can address those concerns, but the permit will allow their use at 731 Poquoson Avenue, and I'm sure they'll be able to tell you more about inside and outdoor activity.
That'd be great.
Any other questions of Thomas? No. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Thomas. You
Job
did a
well
great
done.
job.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing now and ask if there is anybody in our audience that would like to anybody in our audience that trying to figure out exactly what I want to say, because I wanted to bring Blood's concern into it. But anyway, if there's anybody that wants to address this conditional use permit in any way, we'd like to hear from you too. So is there a representative from the church here? Yes, sir. Are you the...
Clark, I'm the trustee chair.
Right up here, sir. Just give us your name and address, please.
Ron Clark, 98 Road Drive, Poquoson Avenue. I'm the trustee chair at Tabernacle.
Mr. Clark, can you address the questions that Councilman Southall and Councilman Fry have?
Also, I can tell you right now that Tabernacle is willing to work with Imagination Land Daycare to keep their facility going until they come up with a plan on how to reorganize. I don't think the church is in a position to take this on forever, but we're willing to be with them and bear the responsibilities that go with it until they are reorganized. To address the playground, there is a playground in the back of the church. They have equipment back there, and the kids do go outside and play based on the weather. If it's too hot, they keep them inside, but they do that. No children are into the kitchen at any time whatsoever. All the issues that came up during the inspections have been taken care of. Everything that permits, everything has been done, fire inspections. So right now we have no problems where we're at.
Any questions of the applicant?
Do you know what their plans are for the future at all, Ron?
I do not.
Just a comment to Councilman Fye. If you turn into the parking lot side of the church, drive all the way back and turn right, back behind the building.
Okay.
Is the playground.
I would
And
just-
they brought their playground equipment from their previous location.
Okay.
And relocated it there.
I would kind of suggest amending it to include the parcels that, like the back parking lot in that area, so the kids can get outside. I mean, if someone would really want to get picky, if we're going to pass it, why not pass it correctly, so that they have the parcels where that equipment lies in the parking lot. Allowed to do that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask the city attorney, if we add additional parcels, don't we need to start this process over again?
You add additional parcels, I don't believe you've advertised the parcels, and I believe you'll need to re-advertise and do it.
Okay.
Purpose is give notice on what parcels you're dealing with, and you only give a notice for the indication on the
Okay, what's council want? Before we go too far, are there any other questions of this gentleman?
No, not of him, but I'd like to
Okay,
hear from somebody from
we'll do that.
Imagination
I'd like to.
Okay.
Ron, do you, is there one or two parcels back there? I thought it was just one parcel.
the church property is made up of a total of 8 parcels, and I can't tell you where the lines are. They've been given to us over the years, and but we have a total of 8 parcels, and I don't know what was included in the permit.
Okay.
Does that help, Bud?
But my question was from Imagination Land, the people who want to use the church, okay, what are their plans? Apparently Ron doesn't know either.
Do you have any idea, Ron, what?
I have not
What
talked
the
to them. I
plans
know
are?
things have changed since they came in. But Miss B is here, who is the director of the daycare, and she's probably be glad to address that question.
Can we hear from Ms. B?
Okay, thanks, sir. Was there someone else? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Just come right up here and tell you who you are and what your address is, and fire away.
Okay, my name is Vanita Southard. This down.
Thank you.
My name is Vanita Southard. I live at 22 Longwood Drive in Hampton, Virginia. I've been currently a director at Imagination Land for over probably 10 years. Right now, our plans is to stay with the church for at least a year or 2. Right now, it would be devastating to uproot our kids right now because of everything that happened. Stability is everything for little kids. We moved them, that's another dramatic. The fire was dramatic to the families, to the kids, and when they come in, they're happy when they come to the church. So right now, we are making plans to build and make a better facility. And yes, we do have 2 playgrounds that we have one outside, then we have one in the courtyard, and those are padded down, so like if the kids, because I know it has like the brick, we do have it padded down for the kids won't get hurt, anything like that. And the state approved it.
Do you have a time frame for getting in your own facility?
We have probably, I would say the end of the summertime. That's probably when we'll probably be able to get our own facility. But right now, I just think that would be dramatic to just up and move the kids right now and the families. I say the summertime.
Okay. Much to ask then that this be limited for 2 years or some reasonable time to give them an opportunity to.
Yeah, because it takes time because, like you said, it has to go through state regulations. I got to make sure the functionings is right to go through the state. They look at the playground areas. They look at the square footage of each classroom that has to fit each child. They look at the structures, make sure that's, we have to do like asbestos, like when we came into the church, we had to have an inspection for that. There's things that we have to do to make sure that the facility that we are going to purchase has to pass our state, and we are looking.
Is it possible for us to approve this and then ask whoever came forward with this to add the additional parcels where the children are going to be, just to make sure the bases are covered?
I think talking about to add that is to, again, we're talking about different parcels, so I think if I understood Wayne correctly, we have to start this process again. Is that right, Wayne?
Well, I have not seen the advertisement itself, but if the advertisement limited to this one tax map number, then that's the only parcel that was noted. Their application did not limit it to a tax map number. I just looked at the application. They simply had an address on the application that they made, not a particular parcel number. So without reviewing the ad, I can't tell you what else may have been included in the ad.
Okay.
If it gave the address of the property, as well as the tax map number, then I think that's adequate notice that the whole property was made available for the amendment. But without reading the ad, I can't answer that question.
Okay.
So maybe we added that.
All right, what do you want to do, guys?
I think leaving it like it is, and as soon as or whenever she gets her building inspected, approved, et cetera, and then, transfer rather than putting a time limit on it, because what that would cause us is that we would have to come back and extend it and go through this again, and then possibly again, depending on the state and the state inspectors. So I think like it is good.
Okay.
With all the bureaucratic things they have to go through, I don't think anybody on this council has any idea how long it would take to construct
something like this. And
I
I think
certainly don't.
make it indefinite and leave it up to the church. If the church gets tired of them, doesn't want them there, they can tell them this is the end, that's it. It's not our decision. And we can't predict how long all these bureaucrats are going to want to look at their plans and do this and do that. So I say approve.
I'm good with that.
He just said, yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Anything else, ma'am?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
You made my night.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we've still got a resolution to approve. Got a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution to approve a conditional use permit for the operation of Imagination Land Daycare at Tabernacle United Methodist Church at 831 Poquoson Avenue, tax map parcel number 19-8-6A, zoned R1, single-family residence.
Thanks, sir.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made second. We adopt the resolution. Any other comments, questions of anyone?
Just
Go
a
ahead.
clarification question for Wayne. What you read there, that's designated as residential. Is that what churches are listed as in the city?
That's what it's zoned as.
I mean zoned as.
That's what the property is zoned as.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Hey, Ms. Kim?
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Fye.
Aye.
Councilman Hux.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote 6-0.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move on to item, the second public hearing is a conditional use permit request by Bay River Enterprises LLC, and I think Mr. Canella is going to talk to us about that. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The second public hearing before you tonight is the second conditional use permit as well. As the mayor said, it's a permit request by Bay River Enterprises LLC, and I direct your attention to the slides. There we go. The applicant, as the mayor said, and I just stated, is Bay River Enterprises LLC to operate Mayor's Exterminating, Mayor's Contracting, and Mayor's Heating and Air. The nature of the business is that of a general contractor, and where the use is request to be located, they would have to apply for a conditional use permit. This is the city code section, and you'll see there, line 16, that we require a conditional use permit for plumbing, electrical, mechanical, home improvement, painting, and general contractors, shops, and storage yard to operate in the B2 district. Here's the location on With Creek Road for reference. This is the flower shop, and this vacant parcel is where the applicant is wishing to construct his and operate his businesses. Mr. Mayor, there's 5 conditions of this permit, same one we saw in the last request, and that the business must comply with all local, state, and federal permits, licenses, and regulations. We did include an hours of operation because the parcel does neighbor residential district, and those hours of operation are to be 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. The third condition is that site plan approval is required with all applicable regulations before the construction of the business. As you can see on the map, the lot is vacant, but the applicant does have a site plan submitted in the Community Development Department, and we're actively reviewing that so that he can construct his business. The fourth condition is that if at any time the specific permitted use on the property is discontinued for a period of 2 or more years, the permit shall become null and void. And of course, number 5 is that City Council reserves the right to review and amend the conditions of this permit as they see fit. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Thomas?
You do a good job.
All right, Thomas, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Let's open the public hearing then and ask, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address this application? Anyone?
I'm happy to answer any questions if needed.
Why don't you jump up here, sir, and let's just see if anybody does have a question of you.
Thomas Mayers, 891 Yorktown Road, obviously with Bay River Enterprises and own Mayers Exterminating, Mayers Contracting, and looking to expand our business in the city. Happy to take any questions. Yes, sir.
I saw the site plan this afternoon. It appears that you're going to be building a fence on the north thing. There's one house just to the north.
Correct.
And most of your operations that will be there will be exterminating business part?
That's our initial plan right now.
Right.
We made an acquisition, so that's the side that saw the most growth and has the biggest need.
Right.
Typically, our employees don't. They just come in for material, paperwork. They really don't operate out of the building. Typically, we're going to have a staff of probably maybe 5 to 6 people, at one time. Maybe once a month have a meeting, but not heavy traffic.
Okay, any other questions? Marcia, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, anybody have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution to approve a conditional use permit for the operation of Mayors Exterminating, doing business as Mayors Contracting and Mayors Heating in the Air at tax map parcel number 18-1-6, zone B2, business commercial.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded. We adopt the resolution. Any questions, concerns? If not, Ms. Kim?
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Councilman Hux,
Aye.
Councilman Fye,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
and Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Welcome to the Central Precinct.
All right, we're going to move on to our third public hearing, and it's an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance, Article 1, General Provisions, Section 1-3, Definitions. Hey, Wally.
Thank you.
Doing good, how are you?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm very good.
All right.
I hope y'all are tonight. Seem to be good.
Wally, do you mind just pulling that thing down or taking, your mask?
Not at all. I'll take this off. You'll probably be able to hear me a little bit better if I do. Okay, tonight, as the mayor did point out, we are looking at amending the zoning ordinance. Article 1, General Provisions, 1-3, Definitions. You have in your packet the ordinance approval information, which is basically includes all the new definitions along with the existing definitions. Basically, one of the main reasons we're doing this, probably the main reason we're doing this, is that City Council, back when we looked at the last modifications for Legacy back in 2019, what we discovered is that our ordinance was rather scant on information such as landscaping, what we mean by trees and understory trees and shrubs. And this was reflected when we looked at the modifications, as I think everybody began to realize as we went forward, is that we really didn't have any requirement for landscaping in the form of trees or shrubs or anything as far as the modifications were concerned, which basically means they could have, Legacy, now fortunately they didn't, but they could have, in essence, cleared all the trees and just planted grass and called that landscaping. So we've tried to be a little more specific about what we're talking about when we talk about landscaping. And I don't want to spend a large amount of time on this, but just to bring your attention to several of the points that I think really stand out in terms of definitions. We did amend alley because we actually approved private travelways as part of the Legacy Master Plan the first time around. So it's not a public travelway, it's a travelway. So we changed that. A buffer, an area in which no buildings or paved surfaces are present, which separates the development from adjoining properties consisting of trees, shrubs, woody ground cover, and open areas or meadows, perhaps. Now, when we talk about buffers, any buffers in any section of our ordinance, we're talking about a visual separation between one use and another. When we talk about naturally wooded buffer, which is something that we'll cover in the plan unit development and mixed use ordinance here a little bit later, We're talking about a buffer consisting of preserved trees, shrubs, and other woody ground cover, which could be, basically small things that are not of a sufficient size to really qualify as a shrub or a tree, but, like you see in the woods, woody ground cover. So we want that to be preserved where it can be. Obviously, some of the other things, landscaping is a combination of both trees and shrubs with grass or other non-woody plants interspersed between the trees or shrubs. And then, of course, the term landscaping includes landscaped and landscape. So we kind of wrap all that in under that definition. But that's important because instead of just grass, we're saying here that we're looking for trees and shrubs with the grass or other non-woody plants, which are basically flowers. That's what those are. Looking at some other high points here. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. I think we do define a canopy tree and a deciduous evergreen tree, what we call an understory tree, which is really just a smaller tree. That's what it amounts to. And a shrub, of course, is something that's typically smaller than a tree, although some shrubs can get rather large. And we do that, and I think as we move through these ordinances tonight, you'll see that these terms become very important because in the past we haven't really been able to articulate what we mean by these terms. Now we can, which will allow us to utilize regulations in a more clear and straightforward manner. So that's definitions, and I'm going to do these one after the other. So if there are any questions on definitions, I'll be glad to take them.
We talked about today, says when a shrub gets to be 12 foot tall, it becomes a tree.
It does become a tree.
Which will come up later on.
Yes.
Go ahead, Kerry.
This is not a change, but under covered boat slips.
Oh, okay.
It says an open-sided structure having a gable, gamble, or hip-style shingled roof. Does it have to be shingles, or could it be any roofing material?
Well, let me take a look at the definition. Open-sided structure having a gable, gamble.
Maybe somebody might want to put a metal roof.
Rubber roof.
Say again?
Rubber roof.
Or, yeah. Or something, I didn't know if shingle, if we needed to be quite that specific or not.
Well, a lot of this definition, and this is a little bit beyond the scope of what we're talking about tonight, but it's certainly fair game. These definitions for covered boat slip is basically taken from VMRC, as I understand it.
But it may require shingles. That was mostly a question.
I believe they do. A gable, gamble, or hip-style shingled roof. So the way they word it makes you wonder if a gable or a gamble actually has a shingled roof. That's a good question.
Okay.
And
I
I'm not
was
sure I've got the specific answer to at this moment.
Not a problem. I'm
But
just
I can
curious.
certainly find out for you.
Well, does the VMRC decide what kind of roof you're going to have on a boat cover?
Yes, they have
They
a
do?
standard, if you meet their standard covered structure for the end of a pier, then they automatically approve it administratively.
Okay. All right.
I think this definition came directly from VM.
Okay.
It did.
Okay.
We can look at it and make sure, but
Yeah.
it
I
is,
just-
it is a standard VMRC exception because so many people were objecting to a covered pier at the end of a pier, a covered
Gotcha.
boat slip, obscuring their view. VMRC came up with standards for approval.
Oh, okay.
I can tell you that lately we've had a lot of conversations with Ms. Tiffany Burge of the VMRC. So we've got her direct in the line, and we can certainly get an answer to your question very quickly on that.
This happened while I was reading through this and
Good
just
question.
wondered if we needed to be that
Good
specific.
We got a lot of definitions.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions of Wally before we?
No, I know Wally wants to do this one after the other. I would suggest you have your public hearing right now. and take action if you feel comfortable before we go on to the next one, rather than to try to have one public hearing touching 4 different things.
Sure. We're just going to do this one right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless there's other questions or concerns. Okay. Is there anyone in our audience who wants to address before we close the public hearing? Okay. If not, we'll close the public hearing and ask for council's.
Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance by revising Article 1, General Provisions, Section 1-3 Definitions.
Second.
I've got a motion made and seconded. We adopt the ordinance. Any concerns, comments, any questions come to mind? If not, Ms. Kim, please.
Councilman Fye,
Aye.
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman, Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Councilman Hux,
Aye.
Mayor Hustle.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Thank you, Kim. Let's move on to our 4th public hearing. It is an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance, Article 3-2, Plan Development Districts and Generally. Molly?
Yes, I didn't even have a chance to sit down. So this
No, we're not going to let you sit down until we get through.
we just keep moving right ahead. Like the last time, you have your ordinance language attached in your package, and I will again kind of go over the changes as we go. This ordinance, likewise, like all the ordinances we're looking at tonight, were essentially initiated by the city council at the tail end of the legacy modifications. We were asked to give it the planning commission to look at them and see what changes might be useful. Like definitions, we provided clarity about eliminating the ability to have more than one interpretation, updated the formatting, reflected changes to the state code, and provided for an increase in fees, which will be once a year based on the Consumer Price Index. Let me pull up my copy here. Okay. What I did is I kind of prepared some planning notes as we went along if there were any questions. Under A2-1, you'll see that we included the word includes. And we just did that to add it as a clarification that the 2 districts, PUDW, which is an acronym for Plan Unit Development Waterfront, and PUDMU, which is an acronym for the Plan Unit Development Mixed Use District, are included. So we just wanted to make that clear. 8.2-2, applicant can request that the requirements of 8-3, which is the waterfront district, which we'll get to in a minute, and Article 8.4, which is the mixed use district, we'll get to also in a minute, can be modified. And we said modified instead of waived because the limited history that we've got on this is that we've done modifications, we haven't really done outright waivers. So I've included the word modified. Now, when we get to plan unit development mixed use, the city council does indeed have the power to waive requirements in certain conditions, largely having to do with buffers. I broke out the formatting a little bit to read a little better. These are really the standards that you would look at. The city council, the planning commission would recommend, and the city council would act on. Any application for a modification. It's a pretty high bar that the requirements are inconsistent with plan development design principles. That's one finding you would need to make. And the other is that the modification is consistent with the intent and purposes of the plan development district under the particular circumstances. Now, fairly high bar, and it's my hope, and I think it's staff's hope, that with the beefed up definitions we've got, we can better articulate exactly what we're looking at. And I'll get to the PowerPoint in a minute, but you'll see the area that we're talking about. It's really not all that large. Important, don't get me wrong, very important, but not that much of the city. But we've definitely beefed up the regulations, so I think that we can kind of breathe life a little bit more into standards. Let me see here. Just want to point out at the bottom of this page that starts with section 8.2-2, we did talk with the Planning Commission about basically having one crack at it, at a modification. The Planning Commission decided to leave the language in there we have now, which says essentially that after the original master plan is approved, Planning Commission and City Council, of course, final action, can choose to issue additional modifications. So that's how Legacy came back to us again, if you'll remember, with the modifications that they proposed the last time around, along with the architectural differences. So the Planning Commission chose to keep that in there, so I kept it in there, obviously. Okay, under 8.2-5, which is on the, I think, third page down, you'll notice that I replaced the city manager with zoning administrator. None of this affects Randy's position as the zoning administrator, Mr. Wheeler, I should say. But the zoning administrator is the person who administers the zoning ordinance in Poquoson. That person is currently the city manager. But if you look at state code, it refers to zoning administrator. So I just wanted to be clear about that.
Does it define who that might be?
Well, right now, that's Mr. Wheeler.
Okay.
So you change your name.
And he's very excited about it.
Zoning administrator?
I am the zoning administrator. I don't have to be. Council
Well,
could
I left
appoint
this
someone
so
else.
that the city council should make a decision at some point in the future that there could be a different zoning administrator. Currently, that is the city manager.
I think you're on the right track. Go ahead.
Okay, under the next page over, at the bottom of 8.2, still on 8.2-5, this is where we articulate all the materials that you have to submit with an application to do a plan development district, whether it's an MU district or a working district. I added the lighting plan on here. I did not put any other information on here, but I do want to say at this point that the lighting plan we were really looking at to be part of the site plan ordinance revisions. However, one of the things we would look for, actually three things we look for. One is that we don't have spillover lighting, excess spillover lighting onto residential properties either zoned residential or used for residential. The benchmark for that is generally 0.5 foot candles, and foot candles can be measured, unlike things like nits and things like that. So we would expect the lighting plan demonstrates that. We would also want the lighting to be downward directionally shielded, and an even distribution of lighting throughout the site. Let me tell you what I've talked about there. When we've got some of the plans we've gotten in, they have a cluster of lighting in one area, and then it's completely dark in other areas. Some of those areas have, private roads or alleys or, public streets. Obviously, you want lighting in those areas as well. So, that's what we're talking about with an even distribution of lighting. We don't want it all clustered into one area. Okay. Pre-application conferences, this is a fairly big change. 8.2-6, we can no longer require pre-application meetings. However, we can strongly advise them, and I sure wouldn't want to enter into a development unless I met with staff and understood the requirements. So I think anybody that's seriously thinking about one of these is probably going to meet with us. But we can't require it, but again, we strongly advise it.
I'm going to point out the reason that we can't require it any longer is the General Assembly changed the law.
That's correct.
To make it so we could no longer do that.
Yeah. General Assembly is trying to get rid of all preliminary plans. Preliminary plans, all those sort of things. And so this is one of the ways in which they do it also. The idea is to be able to go from A to Z on your development as fast as possible. But, you know, sometimes when you're in a hurry, you forget things. So we certainly recommend that. 8.2-12, stormwater permit. We added the language, stormwater permit has been issued and the stormwater pollution prevention plan has been approved. That's basically state requirements. We just stated them in our zoning ordinance. They would apply whether we stated them or not, but it's always good to state what your requirements are. It just makes it a little bit clearer for the individual contemplating a development. And we made changes to the fees. We tried to streamline them to make them a little bit easier to read. And we also don't charge them $1,250,000. So we got rid of the 1,000 in there. And we put the numerals in dollars in parentheses. And we also, rather than January 1st, 2010, which is obviously a long time ago, beginning January 1st, 2022, these will be adjusted annually, and that's according to the Consumer Price Index. I also do want to point out under this 2D, inspection fees as prescribed in Section 208 of the Site Plan Ordinance. In anticipation of possible revision to the Site Plan Ordinance, I just said Site Plan Ordinance, rather than quoting a specific section, because that might change. I'll be glad to take any questions you have. That's basically.
Did you say you had a PowerPoint?
I have a PowerPoint that comes into play with more. However, if I'm allowed to walk over here.
You can, yes, sir. You can walk wherever you want to.
Thank you. This was just a little graphic here to show, and really both of these districts are part of the planned development district, so it's appropriate to go over it here, I think. The planned unit development mixed use overlay district, we added the area to the south.
Hold on, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Wally, have we concluded with your second item before we move to the third?
Well, I was just trying to answer a question in terms of, but yes, we have concluded the second item.
And might I suggest we conclude with the second before we proceed to the third?
We can do that.
Okay, so is that everything, Wally, regarding this ordinance?
That's everything for the planned development district.
Okay.
8.
Okay. Let's see if the council has any questions of you. It doesn't sound like it. Anybody in the audience like to address it? Okay. If not, Mr. Green.
I move that we adopt an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance by revising Article 8.2, Planned Development Districts generally.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made second. We adopt the ordinance. Are any further questions? Any comments? If not, Ms. Kim, please.
Councilman Five,
Aye.
Councilman Southall. Aye. Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kim. Wally, number 5.
Okay, number 5. This planned unit development mixed use overlay district is what we're looking at here. And as I was starting to a minute ago, I was going to show you the part of our city that's actually been not activated, but is part of the planned unit development mixed use ordinance. You'll see that we added that. That was added together when we did the legacy project. So, and I can superimpose legacy over that. Now, this is a little bit different perspective, but you see that legacy eats up a fair amount of the property south of Victory Boulevard. You still have some area north of Victory Boulevard owned by Victory Baptist Church, and I think you got some individuals here. These are the EDA properties right here. But the point I'm trying to make is it's not a huge area of the city. Certainly it's in our gateway, and it's very important that we get that right because it is in our gateway. And right now, Victory Boulevard is about the only game in town as far as getting in and out of town in times of a hurricane, largely getting out, I suppose. And there's currently no planned unit development waterfront district in the city at this time. There's been talk about it in the past. Since I've been here, I know there was talk on Browns Neck Road at one time, and I understand further back there may have been talk about the manufactured homes and the Surf Rider area. I know just enough about that to say basically what I said. Let me go through. This is going to explain a particular section that's going to be in both the planned unit development mixed use and planned unit development waterfront. But let me go ahead and go through. Wait till I get there. I think taking this in order might make a little more sense. And I'm on the mixed use overlay district now. Like the other two ordinances, you have the wording for the ordinance in your packet. Basically, under 8-4.1, we just want to make it clear that these regulations are in addition to the requirements of 8.2. It's very important. They're cumulative. 8.2, I think, speaks a little bit more towards the legal machinery aspects. This actually talks more about what we actually want as part of the district. And you'll notice about halfway down the page, a mixed-use development should. I included should. I took out should and I included shall, because if we want a planned unit development and we want these things, we need to ask for them. Otherwise, a developer could say, "Well, you get one out of you get 1 out of 6. You don't get all 6 of them." So we changed that. Okay, let me keep moving here. Don't have as much room on this table as I had on the other one. At the top of the second page, still under 8-4.2, and I'm sorry, I'll try to speak into the mic. We added Americans with Disability Act requirements for parks, playgrounds, clubhouses, and non-commercial recreational and cultural activities. ADA is mandated by the federal government, so we got to go by that anyway, but we've had at least one instance of review that I can remember since I've been here where, the developer sort of forgot about the ATA requirements. So it's always good to have it in the ordinance. Okay, made a brief note under number 9 down here, accessory uses and structures. 1-7 says nothing about accessory uses or structures. However, 1-23 in Article 14 of the City Zoning Ordinance does. Now, when I get to planned unit development waterfront, you're going to see a lot of these regulations again. So my presentation won't be quite as long from now. Let me keep going ahead here. Okay, 8-4.5, perimeter buffers and open space. Yep. This is what I prepared the PowerPoint for. But let me go over it, first of all, just verbally reading off the ordinance. We certainly want an existing naturally wooded buffer to remain where it exists. I mean, we need to be careful because obviously if you cut down that and you plant it in little trees, it's going to take those little trees a long time, a very long time, before they provide the kind of buffer that you get from a naturally wooded buffer. But where we do have gaps of greater than 400 square feet in the naturally wooded buffer, we are proposing to require landscaping. Now, the wording of this is much more complicated than it actually is. But essentially, one canopy tree takes 130 square feet of planting area. One understory tree takes 90 square feet a planting area. And a shrub takes about 30 square feet of planting area. If you add it up, 1 canopy tree, 2 understory trees, and 3 shrubs, you get 400 square feet. That's what we would call a one-to-one relationship, because you got 400 square feet, you got a landscape, and you've got landscaping available that's going to take up that 400 square feet. So it's a one-to-one relationship. Now, because we have things like overhead lines, and we have things that you would not necessarily want a canopy tree to go under, we do have a provision that in lieu of a canopy tree, adjusted numbers of understory trees and or shrubs shall be required as determined in accord with this section. What that means is that if you can't use a canopy tree for 130 square feet, maybe you can use a regular tree, understory tree of 90 square feet and a shrub of 30 square feet in place of it. You'd have a 10-foot difference, but I'll get to that here in just a minute. You'll never have more than a 15-foot difference either over or under, simply because math, essentially. A shrub takes 30 square feet, so the most you can ever be off is half of that, is 15 square feet. Okay, let me go over these slides that may... So I got to trouble to make them, might as well go over them, right? Okay, let me see here. We've already covered the one-to-one relationship. Now, here's the thing. You can get 400 square feet if you take 1 canopy tree, 2 understory trees, and 3 shrubs. As I said a minute ago, if you do 3 understory trees and 4 shrubs, you only get 390 square feet. So what happens to the remaining 10 square feet? We would probably just require them to plant in grass or other non-woody plantings, which might be flowers. Okay? Okay, area of 500 square feet. We can't get exactly to 500 square feet in terms of plantings. 490 or 510 square feet is as close as we can get. If they chose 490, which would be using the canopy tree, which we want them to use when they can, remainder would be in grass or non-woody plantings, or if they went over 510 square foot, we would allow them to reduce the shrub size to ensure survivability. We require that shrubs be 6 feet in the height at maturity, at least 6 feet in the height. But to ensure survivability, we would probably allow smaller shrubs in that case. Survivability is a big point here, as we want these to stay around. These are just some other examples of 600 square feet. Again, you can get to 600 square feet if you don't plant a canopy tree. If you plant a canopy tree, you're going to be off. But either one is okay in the zoning ordinance because we want to be flexible. 700 square feet, sort of the same situation in reverse. You can get to a 700 if you plant a canopy tree, but if you cannot plant a canopy tree for reasons of overhead wires or water tanks or whatever, you'll get close. The 750 is more the same thing, and I don't want to drag y'all through this unnecessarily, but and I'll certainly be happy to go back over it again. If we're over 800 square feet, trees and shrubs would be close to a percentage ratio of 50-50 as possible, realizing that that's not always going to be possible because of math again. But we'll always get within 15 square feet of regardless of what the square footage to be planted is. And that's really the important thing that I'm trying to get across, is that that we're going to have good coverage. Okay. All right. So that's what I mean by buffers. And sorry if I drove that out a little long. But
If I can say something, Wally, because
sure.
I went over this about 10 times at home and then tried to explain it to the dog and then came in and talked with you and Tanya about it this morning, and it really helps the more I understand it. And for the people that are watching, thinking, what are they talking about in square feet? Because I wrote some things down. Trees don't grow in squares, obviously. They grow in circles. So that's taken into account. The dimensions are measured on the ground, but not 35 feet in the air. Understory trees basically grow under a canopy tree. You plant them at the same time, you're probably going to end up with canopy trees, because understory trees, unless they're planted like a dogwood underneath a canopy already existing, they're going to grow in the sunlight like everything else, and we understand that. Without a canopy overhead, though, all the understory trees may die, or they may grow to the size of a canopy over 35 feet. And as I noted before, if a shrub grows to 12 feet, it becomes an understory tree, which is kind of neat. But the big thing is that this gives the developer some rules to follow, and it gives the zoning administrator rules to follow when he's looking at their plan. That's
Correct.
what I like about what you put together.
That's the whole idea. But now, if we do get to the point where we're talking about landscaping strips in site plan or zoning, then of course we'll have to look at something a little bit differently. But yes. Okay, moving on, if I may. Number 3, under 8.4-5, I'm still there. 40-foot buffer requirement can be waived, obviously, upon application by the developer, by city council if the proposed district's perimeter boundary lies adjacent to property subject to the same PUD and MU district designation. Let me go back to the first part of this and basically say what that means. Basically, this buffer right here for legacy, for example, would be eligible to be waived because it is adjoining property that's in the plan unit development mixed-use district. If it does not abut property in the mixed-use district, it cannot be waived unless the underlying zoning district has it as commercial, in which case it can be waived down to 50%, down to 20 feet. We're not advocating changing that. We feel that it is important that city council retains some ability to modify and waive, as is appropriate in looking at these plans. Okay, use is permitted in open space. Here again, city council can alter this, but what we're trying to say here is that you can have non-commercial recreational structures and uses. You can have public and maintenance utilities beyond what is minimally necessary for development, as long as they're basically perpendicular. They disturb as little buffer as possible. Stormwater management facilities, non-tidal wetlands, that's unchanged, but we still got it in there. Areas to provide reasonable, this is number 5, under 8.4.5, B5, sorry. Areas to include reasonable buffering between dissimilar uses within such development, which may include walls or fencing. The idea is that if the buffer is waived down to close to 0 or whatever, we may want some walls in there to provide some screening between the planned unit development use and adjoining properties. Again, that will be up to the zoning administrator, that lucky person. Okay. Under 8.4-6C, I added another subject to Americans with Disability Act requirements. Corrected the typographical error under 8.2-7B. Just reference the appropriate article of the ordinance. Under 8.4-8, this is not taking away your authority, city council's authority to set setbacks, which you have now. This is just saying that should the city council not specify any setbacks, they will default to 10 foot for side yards and 20 foot for rear yards. Okay. All right. Under, let me make sure I got the right section here. Under 8.4-8, C, outer perimeter, We don't want paved surfaces in the perimeter. Unless it, of course, has been waived by the city council for whatever reason, or modified. But, under 3, you'll notice I put alleys, because alleys are allowed. And 8.4-10, fence and wall requirements. Basically, we reworded that section, because the way it looked when it was first out, it just wasn't worded very well. It made a person might think that the zoning administrator had to approve our requests. Well, he does if you want to build the fence and the wall, but he doesn't have to approve it if he doesn't think it, if it doesn't meet our requirements. So we reworded it, and we also added the part that if you're using the fence or wall for screening purpose, it can be up to 6 feet in height. Okay, the last one here, this is the last one, 8.4-11, minimal architectural design. I talked to the planning commission a lot in terms of the architectural changes that we made to the townhouses the last time legacy modifications came up. And I'm afraid we got a little bit too aggressive. I'm going to suggest that or that we've got crossed out right before other architectural elements, I'm going to suggest that we might want to keep that or, because that gives us a little bit more flexibility to look at individual architectural designs. For example, if we're talking about houses, not every house is going to have a balcony. And it's probably unreasonable to say that every house ought to have a balcony. Now, there'll certainly be some other architectural features that we'll look at. But the point of the matter is that you may have some buildings that are lacking one of these 4 things that I listed at the very least. But the city council may want to, that's why I'm saying keep the word or, don't cross that out. But they may the city council may want to look at other architectural elements that accomplish attractive architectural design. So I'll just leave it at that. That's the one change that from the staff level we would recommend that you consider. You may be fine with it. I mean, that's fine too. But
Wally, I lost you on that. Which one was that?
this is the very last one, 8.4-11, minimum architectural design.
Okay.
Could you define articulated massing a little bit better for me?
Yes, I can. Articulated massing is instead of a straight wall, you've got some definition in it, like it could be a bay window.
Okay.
Something that sometimes they do it with the gable roofs where they'll kind of stick out a little bit, but it's not flat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Members of council, the point that Mr. Horton was making relating to 8.4-11, the original language of the ordinance, talked about, the structures would need to have windows, balconies, or bay windows, or other architectural elements. And those worked well together in the drive to add articulated massing, which seemed important to council as it reviewed the elevation example we looked at previously. The one step too far was to take out the or other stuff. The or other architectural elements was part of the original language. We're respectfully suggesting that if you move on this ordinance revision, that you keep the original language in that line that begins with the strike-through word or. Otherwise, every structure would have to have a window, a balcony, a bay window, and articulated massing. And I think it was envisioned really primarily for townhouses to make sure that it wasn't, a flat-faced cookie-cutter kind of deal, but this also applies to the single-family houses and other. I don't think we're looking for, hundreds upon hundreds of balconies.
No. I just didn't understand what the words meant.
All right, does that conclude your presentation on that item? Okay.
So we putting the or back in there, is that what we're doing?
I would respectfully suggest that you leave that one sentence in 8.4-11, which begins with the word or, originally in its original configuration, which would say, or other architectural elements in order to achieve attractive architectural design may be included.
Sounds good to me.
All right, any questions of Wiley on number 5 here? And before we do open the public hearing, this is an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance Article 8.4, Planned Unit Development Mixed Use Overlay District. Okay, we'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anybody in our audience who would like to address this item. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on with the motion of council so advised.
Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance by revising Article 8.4, Planned Unit Development Mixed-Use Overlay District, and change 8.4-11 to include the original language or other architectural elements.
That's so well done. That's so well done.
Thank you.
Do you have a second, Karen? Okay, we have a motion made and second. Any other concerns or comments? If not, Ms. Kim?
Councilman Hux?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman? Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel? Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Thank you, Kim. Let's move on to item 6. It's an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance Article 8.3, Plan Unit Development Waterfront Overlay District.
Okay, probably going to be able to go through this one a lot faster because essentially the changes we made to PUD-MU have been incorporated into the PUD-W, Plan Unit Development Waterfront. Basically, it's the same changes. There's a few differences between the waterfront district and the MU district, though. One of them is the amount of the buffer. It's 50 feet in the waterfront, and it's of course it's 40 feet in MU. So we worded everything to address the 50-foot buffer there instead of the 40-foot buffer. That was a change. The other change is there is not waiver language in the waterfront ordinance. So if you want to modify anything, you got to do it as part of the master plan. There's not similar language as, PUD-MU talks about if you're surrounded by PUD-MU, you can eradicate the buffer. There's no such language for waterfront. Of course, again, we don't have any waterfront, we don't have any planned unit development waterfront property in the city at this point anyway. And not to minimize that, but the fact is we don't, and I don't know when we might. But, we added alleys in here. We added the information about the American Disabilities Act. We made it clear that these regulations apply as part of the plan development district regulations. We made the same changes about accessory uses and structures, got rid of 1-7, kept 123, and added Article 14, which deal with those home occupations. And we had the same language about perimeter buffers in open space, except that, again, we're dealing with 50-foot buffer instead of a 40. Boy, I tell you, there's a lot that's very similar here. It's just that it changes. I will direct your attention to one thing. Under 8.4-5B, 8.3. I'm sorry, C1. These sections are very long. I admit they're hard They're hard to look up on the fly. But we added a 100-foot resource protection area buffer in terms of areas where things can be recorded in open space should the city council authorize that. I think it was applied, but the planning commission was very sincere and very. They really felt like it needed to be in there, so we put it in there. And going down to the very end. I'm not trying to go too fast, but I don't think there's anything in here that's really different. I would ask you to do the same thing with 8.3-11 that you did with 8.4-11. That is, retain the or under the architectural standards. Just like you did in the last motion. We put in zoning administrator instead of city manager. That's about it. I'll be glad to take any questions you have.
Okay, anybody have questions? Okay, not hearing any, we'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone in our audience who'd like to address this ordinance. All right, we'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance by revising Article 8.3, Plan Unit Development Waterfront Overlay District, and under 8.3.11, after 4, include the original language or other architectural elements.
All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made second to adopt the ordinance. Any further questions, any comments from anyone? If not, Ms. Kim, please.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman? Councilman Hux?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6 to 0.
Thank you, Kim. We'll move on to new business. First item, an ordinance making additional appropriations for fiscal year 2022 in the general fund and the capital project fund for continuing to support the migration for the real property assessment software. Is that Ms. Tanya?
Yes, sir. Thank you, council members, Mayor. Tonight, we have in front of you a recommendation to appropriate $200,000 from the general fund unrestricted fund balance to capital projects. This is for the migration of the assessor software. We are on an old system called CAMI. It's going to move to a new software, Vision. So this money will help make sure that migration happens. Also, it's the intent of the assessor to retire June 1st. So this money will also allow us to overlap in that position and do the things needed to get the software assessor up and running for the next assessment. In addition, the ordinance allows the city manager to enter into contract with Vision to do such.
Okay. Tanya, thank you very much. Any questions of Tanya? Okay. For a motion, someone.
Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance making additional appropriation fiscal year 2022 in the general fund and the capital project fund for continuing support of the migration for the real property assessment software.
Second.
All right, motion made second that we adopt the ordinance. Any concerns, comments? If not, Ms. Kim?
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Councilman Hux?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6 to 0.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Second item under new business is a resolution making an appointment to the Peninsula Agency on Aging. Anyone have a name?
Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution making appointments to the Peninsula Agency on Aging by inserting the name Dr. Mary Powell.
Okay? All right, motion made second we adopt the resolution with that name inserted. Any other concerns or comments? If not, Ms. Kim?
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Hux?
Aye.
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6 to 0.
All right, thank you very much. Comments, City Manager, Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only really one thing this evening. I just wanted to thank Tanya for all of her work running point on this reassessment migration. It is not simple. It's a long lead time coordination, and her leadership will be what makes this successful. So it's yet another significant duty as assigned, but I just to express my thanks to her in this forum.
Okay. Bud?
I'd just like to thank everyone here and at home for paying attention to the city government. It's important. Invite your friends. Attention to city government and all government, for that matter, is very important, and we thank you for paying attention.
Kerry?
I have nothing tonight.
David? Okay, buddy? No comment.
Yes, on Wednesday at 5:30, there'll be a ribbon cutting down at South Lawson Park for the new picnic pavilion. I'd like to thank personally Tom Jones, who had a lot to do with all the little bits and pieces that we don't see putting that together, and I understand Councilman Green had some kind of design input in there as well. But there will be a thing, and followed by food. I think the invitation went out last week, but because of rain, we had to cancel it on Thursday. Makeup will be this Wednesday at 5:30.
Okay, look forward to it. Thanks, sir. Let me just say welcome to two new businesses which the council's familiar with, but the public is not yet probably. And one is Early Birds. They're open now. They're right there at the intersection of Hudgens Road and With Creek, and Garden Towing, located at Poquoson Avenue and With Creek. What was a service station there, and it's they've really done a lot of work on it. It really looks nice, and wish them a lot of success as they move along. Okay, anybody else? If nothing else, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Motion made, second, we adjourn. Ms. Kim?
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman? Councilman Hux?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
All right, we'll adjourn. Thank you, Kim.